I will now take the sediment for this meeting of the Planning Local Review Body held on the 7th of August 2023. The following members are present: Councillors Ali Callison, Jerry Convery, Councillor Mary Donnelly is not present. Following members are present: Councillors Gladys Ferguson-Miller, Mark Horsham, Leslie MacDonald, Richard Nelson. Norman Ray. We have apologies from Councillor Graham Scott, and Councillor Maureen Devlin is attending as a substitute. Thank you, and I'll now pass you back to the Chair for today's business.
Many thanks, Stuart. Going to item number 1, is there any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. I will then move to agenda item number 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. It's pages 5 to 8 in your pack. These are submitted as for approval as correct record. All agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. I'll move them. Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is reviewing the case in respect of planning application P220281, which is pages 9 to 106 in your pack. The item before us today is in a notice of review from ALBDE Architects on behalf of Ms Whitney Watson. The applicant is asking the PLRB to review the planning officer's determination to refuse an application for planning permission for the erection of a 2-storey rear extension with associated alterations and the formation of a roof terrace at 75 Kirk Street in Strathaven. Firstly, I'm going to ask the planning advisor to describe the background to this request for a review to the members. James?
Thank you, Chair. This local review relates to the refusal of an application for planning permission for the erection of a 2-storey rear extension with associated alterations and formation of a roof terrace at an existing dwelling house at 75 Kirk Street, Strathaven. The property is a detached 1.5-storey dwelling house and has previously been extended to the rear with a dormer window and 2 single-storey extensions. The property has neighbours on all sides with the exception of the rear garden, which backs onto a supermarket. Several of the neighbouring properties have been extended, and the immediate neighbour to the west of the site has a 2-storey rear extension. The site is located within the settlement boundary of Strathaven, as defined in the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2, and is also located within a conservation area. The proposed extension would replace the existing single-storey rear extensions and dormer window, creating a 2-storey extension, including the creation of a roof terrace on the roof of part of the ground level extension. The alterations also include the installation of roof lights to the front of the house and raising the ridge height of the dwelling by approximately 13.5 centimetres. As noted in the agenda papers, there were no letters of representation received following advertisement of the application, and no consultations were required given the nature and scale of the proposals. Since its adoption in February, National Planning Framework 4, or NPF4 for short, now forms part of the development plan alongside the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2. Section 24.3 of the 1997 Planning Act confirms that if there is an inconsistency between NPF4 policies and a local development plan which was adopted before the 13th of February 2023, then the policies in NPF4 will prevail. The current South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan was adopted in 2021, and therefore NPF4 would prevail should there be inconsistencies between policies. It should be noted that the application before the review body today was decided prior to the adoption of NPF4, and this document was therefore not referenced in the original decision, but does now form part of the development plan in terms of today's assessment. Therefore, in assessing this local review, the local review body are respectfully requested to consider the following relevant policies of NPF4 and the South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2, which are Policy G of NPF4, Policy 16, which states that householder development will be supported where they do not have a detrimental impact on the character or environmental quality of the home and the surrounding area in terms of size, design and materials, and where they do not have a detrimental effect on neighbouring properties in terms of physical impact, overshadowing or overlooking. MPF 4 Policy 7D, which states that development proposals in or affecting conservation areas will only be supported where the character and appearance of the conservation area and its setting is preserved or enhanced. Relevant considerations include the architectural and historic character of the area, existing density, built form and layout, and context and siting, quality of design, and suitable materials. In terms of the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2, the relevant policies are Policy 5, Development Management and Placemaking, which states that in order to ensure development takes account of the principles of sustainable development, all proposals require to be well designed and integrated with the local area. Proposals should have no unacceptable significant adverse impacts on the local community and the environment. Policy 14, Natural and Historic Environment. This policy states that the Council will assess all development proposals in terms of their impact on the natural and historic environment, including biodiversity, geodiversity, landscape and townscape. It also further states that the Council will seek to protect important natural and historic sites and features from adverse impacts resulting from development, including cumulative impacts. In Category 3 areas, conservation areas and their settings, development which would have a significant adverse impact following the implementation of mitigation measures will only be permitted where the effects are outweighed by significant social or economic benefits. Where possible, any development proposals which affect natural and historic designations should include measures to enhance the conservation value of the site affected. Policy DM2, House Extensions and Alterations, which states, house extensions and alterations will be considered favourably where it can be demonstrated that the proposal complies with the following criteria. 1. The siting, form, scale, design and materials respect the character of the existing dwelling and the wider area. Within this context, high quality, innovative design will be encouraged where it complements the character of the building and its surroundings. 2. It does not dominate or overwhelm the existing dwelling, neighbouring properties or street scene in terms of size, scale or height. And 3. It does not significantly adversely affect adjacent properties in terms of overlooking or loss of privacy, daylight or sunlight. Finally, we have policy NHE6, Conservation Areas, which states that development and demolition within a conservation area or affecting its setting shall preserve or enhance its character and be consistent with any relevant conservation area appraisal or management plan that may have been prepared for the area. The design, materials, scale and siting of any development shall be appropriate to the character of the conservation area and its setting. Trees which are considered by the Council to have amenity value and contribute to the character and appearance of the conservation area shall be preserved. It is these policies that provide the development plan basis for considering the application. Finally, Chair, the review body should note that the appellant considers a site visit and further written submissions as being beneficial to the review body. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, James. As members will now be aware, from the 13th of February this year, MPF 4 was adopted and published by the Scottish Ministers. It now forms part of the Statutory Development Plan, along with the South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2. The next point for us, the PLRB, to consider and decide is how to proceed with this review. The applicant has indicated that a site inspection and further written submissions would be of assistance to the PLRB. The applicant has also advised that the notice of review indicates in error that the review can be determined without any further procedures. Taking account of what is in our papers here, we have to decide if they do in fact contain sufficient information for us to determine the review today, or if we need more written information, a hearing or a site visit. I think all the information that we have, plus the detailed photographs we have of the site, does provide us with all we need to consider this review, without either a site visit or a hearing or further written submissions. Do the members therefore agree that we can proceed without a site visit, hearing or additional information?
Agreed.
Agreed. Anyways, other-minded? No, we can then proceed to review and open the review for discussion. Take any comments. Councillor Allison online.
Thanks, Chair. I'm currently sitting looking at page 34, photograph 4, and just wondering looking at it, the extension they're looking to propose actually makes it very similar to the house next door. And I'm actually just wondering how much of the refusal is down to the materials they're looking to use, and rather than the rendering that these two houses obviously have, is to do with the refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. Yeah, I think it's a relatively good point, actually. Something we picked up in the pre-agenda as well, and I think I was going to give my comments later on. My thinking was, again, is similar to yours about the extension next door. What gave me some concerns was the actual outside area, but I'll ask James just to come in and see if we can comment on Councillor Allison's.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, as per the policies that we've gone through, you are not only meant to preserve or enhance the character of a conservation area, but I suppose it's not really my gift to make any statement on the actual design, which is quite modern, and it would be for the local review. I think if you are wanting to think on that, it's also worth looking at the elevations in terms of what you would see from the street frontage, which is probably the most prominent part of the conservation area. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Councillor Maureen Devlin online.
Thanks, Chair. I don't know if you can hear me okay, right? No, it's roughly about the same as yourself and Alec. Even if you look at some of the submissions from the architect, even the front of the houses there's been changes in the design in the front. And I can't see what the issue is here, to be honest with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Devlin. Anybody else? Any further? Jerry.
Yeah, like Alec, like Maureen, and I said it at the pre-agenda meeting, I don't see the problem for this extension to go ahead, because in both sides of the cottage that's looking for the extension, they've changed the whole emphasis of the cottage as it originally was built, and I for one would give planning permission for it to go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Convery. Councillor MacDonald.
Thanks, Chair. Just a simple question. The ridge height, and having checked these photographs, what did you say, 13.5 centimetres is not a lot in anybody's language. I happen to drive past these houses on an almost daily basis. I personally, like everybody else, I don't see an issue with this. I just was concerned that the ridge height seemed to be the issue, the main issue. James, could you clarify that for me, please?
Yes, just to confirm, the ridge height is being raised, and it is by 13.5 centimetres. It's not for me to advise whether that's significant or not. That is for the local review body. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? No. Okay, can I just summarise the points made then? The application is for planning permission for the erection of a 2-storey rear extension with the associated alterations in the formation of a roof terrace. The adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2 identifies the site as being within the conservation area of Straven. If we consider that there is no valid policy justification to support the proposed rear extension and alteration at this location, and it would not accord with policy 16 of NPF 4 and policies 5, 14, DM2 and NHE 6 of the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2, permission can be refused. Or, if we consider that there is adequate justification for the proposed rear extension and alterations, we could grant plan permission subject to conditions. Our options here are to uphold, reverse or vary the planning decisions. I will invite for any decisions or reasons.
Chair, I would like to move that we agree that the applicant should get planning permission for
Thank
the reason
you.
I've stated.
Councillor Convery, so that's just to reverse the planning
Yes.
decision.
Yeah.
Councillor Maureen Devlin, online, please.
I was going to second Jerry's proposal.
Thank you, Maureen. And Councillor Alec Allison online as well, please.
Chair, I didn't think I'd pressed anything.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Allison. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, can I just clarify, there doesn't appear to be any other hands raised, so can I just clarify that no other members are otherwise minded? So it's proposed by Councillor Convery, seconded by Councillor Devlin, that plan permission be granted. Can I just clarify the grounds for that, please, Councillor Convery?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't think it's overtly out of character, because if you look at the row of cottages there at the present time, there are no dormer windows, but there's extensions to the roof space all right along the street, apart from this one cottage.
Thanks, Councillor Convery. In that case, if members are happy, we can issue draft conditions for your consideration.
I think what we'll do is we'll just adjourn for 5 minutes. We'll reconvene at 10:55. That will give us time for the paperwork just to be sent to your email, and for anyone in the room, we will pass you around a paper copy. So we'll come back at 10:55. And I hope you've had a chance just to read the draft conditions. Can I just ask that the live streaming has recommenced? Okay, thank you. Everyone will have had a chance now to have a look at the draft conditions. Can I just ask if there are any questions or comments on these? If not, if we're then happy to proceed.
No.
Okay, no one online either. Therefore, the decision of this PLR... Okay, sorry. Is everybody happy to approve the conditions?
Agreed.
Agreed? Okay, therefore, it is the decision of the PLRB to grant planning permission subject to the agreed conditions that were sent out. The next stage is that a written decision notice will be issued by the PLRB, and this should be issued within 28 days. Thank you. We'll then move on to agenda item number 3, which is a review of case in respect of planning application P230156. That is pages 107 to 234 in your pack. The item before us today is a notice of review from Andrew Benny Planning Limited on behalf of Mr. Joseph Pika. The applicant is asking the PLRB to review the planning officer's determination to refuse an application for planning permission for the erection of a new increased ridge height to facilitate second floor of accommodation, installation of front and rear dormers and erection of balcony at Sion 47 Burnblay Street in Hamilton. The review documents have raised a preliminary matter, therefore I would like to ask the legal advisor to comment on this before we proceed to the review itself, and I'll ask Monica just to come in. Thank you.
Good morning. If I could refer members to pages 221 and 222 of your papers, please, in particular paragraphs 1.3 and 3.2 of the Statement of Observations by the Planning Authority. As members will note, paragraph 1.3 refers to the fact that the decision notice issued by the Planning Authority on the 6th of April 2023 contained errors and that it did not contain clear reasons for refusal, and paragraph 3.2 states that the reasons for the decision referred to in the decision notice were inaccurate, and then they mention policies 1 and 2 of NPF 4, which is acknowledged by the Planning Authority should not be considered a determining factor in reaching a decision on this review. I've been asked to clarify how these errors could impact on the PLRB's decision today. Firstly, a planning decision notice can only technically be quashed by court order. Consequently, despite the errors, the decision notice still stands. The applicant has requested the PLRB to determine the matter afresh, and therefore any errors in the original decision notice will be superseded by the decision of the PLRB today. In terms of the decision the PLRB may make today, as you're aware, the PLRB under section 43A15 of the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act 1997 has the power to uphold, reverse or vary the Planning Authority's original decision. Given, however, that in this review, the original decision of the Planning Authority, as acknowledged by them, contained errors, it would therefore not be advisable to uphold the original decision. The decision before the PLRB today should therefore be to either reverse the decision, that is, grant the application with or without conditions, or vary the existing determination in order to rectify the errors in the original decision notice. That is, refusal of the application, but for different reasons to those set out in the original decision notice. To uphold the decision in this instance would effectively be to reissue the erroneous decision notice. I trust that clarifies matters, but if anyone has any further questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you, Monica. I will then just move into James, the Planning Advisor. He's going to now describe the background to this request for a review to members, and then we'll come to any questions or comments after James.
Thank you, Chair. This local review relates to the refusal of an application for planning permission for the erection of a new roof with increased ridge height to facilitate second floor accommodation and installation of front and rear dormers and balcony to a dwelling house. The site is located within the settlement boundary of Hamilton as defined in the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2. The property does not have a street frontage and sits to the rear of 49 Burnblee Street with neighbouring properties on all sides. The current property is a split-level, single-storey dwelling house, and the proposals are to increase the existing roof height to add a second storey onto the property with dormer windows providing additional living accommodation as part of the roof height increase. A balcony is proposed on the north elevation of the property as part of the alterations. As noted in the agenda papers, there were 2 letters of representation received following advertisement of the application with the following concerns: overlooking and privacy from the proposed windows, loss of sunlight from the proposals, noise and disturbance from the construction works. No consultations were required given the nature and scale of the proposals. Since its adoption in February, National Planning Framework 4, or NPF 4 for short, now forms part of the development plan, alongside the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2. Section 24.3 of the 1997 Planning Act confirms that if there is an inconsistency between NPF 4 policies and the Local Development Plan, which was adopted before the 13th of February 2023, then the policies in NPF 4 will prevail. The current South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan was adopted in 2021, and therefore NPF 4 would prevail should there be inconsistencies between policies. Therefore, in assessing this local review, the local review body are respectfully requested to consider the following relevant policies of NPF 4 and the South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2, which are Policy G of NPF 4 Policy 16, which states that householder development will be supported where they do not have a detrimental impact on the character or environmental quality of the home and the surrounding area in terms of size, design and materials, and where they do not have a detrimental effect on neighbouring properties in terms of physical impact, overshadowing or overlooking. In terms of the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2, the relevant policies are Policy 3, General Urban Areas and Settlements, which states that residential developments on appropriate sites will generally be acceptable. Particular consideration will be given to likely impacts on the amenity of the area. Developments which would be detrimental to the amenity of residents and the wider community or to the character of the surrounding area will not be permitted. Policy 5, Development Management and Placemaking, which states that in order to ensure development takes account of the principles of sustainable development, all proposals require to be well designed and integrated with the local area. Proposals should have no unacceptable significant adverse impacts on the local community and the environment. And finally, Policy DM2, House Extensions and Alterations, which states, house extensions and alterations will be considered favourably where it can be demonstrated that the proposal complies with the following criteria. 1, the siting, form, scale, design and materials respect the character of the existing dwelling and the wider area. Within this context, high quality, innovative design will be encouraged where it complements the character of the building and its surroundings. 2, it does not dominate or overwhelm the existing dwelling, neighbouring properties or street scene in terms of size, scale or height. And 3, it does not significantly adversely affect adjacent properties in terms of overlooking or loss of privacy, daylight or sunlight. It is these policies that provide the development plan basis for considering the application. Finally, Chair, the review body should note that the appellant considers a site visit as being beneficial to the review body. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, James. As members will now be aware, from the 13th of February, NPF 4 was adopted and published by the Scottish Minister. It now forms part of the Statutory Development Plan along with the South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2. The next point for us, the PLRB, to consider and decide is how to proceed with this review. The applicant has indicated that a site inspection would be of assistance to the planning local review body, and taking account of what is in our papers, we have to decide if they do in fact contain sufficient information for us to determine the review today, or if we need more written information, a hearing or a site visit. I think all the information we have, plus the detailed photographs we have of the site, does provide us with all we need to consider for this review without either a site visit or hearing or further written submissions. Do we all agree, therefore, that we can proceed without a site visit, hearing, or any additional information?
Agreed.
Agreed. Anyone otherwise minded? Okay, we can then proceed to the review and open up for the discussion. Any questions or comments? Councillor Maureen Devlin, please.
Thanks, Chair. It's just I wanted to ask James something. On page 123 in the assessment, the planner's assessment, it says impact on privacy, no. Impact on sunlight, no. But when you turn over to page 125 in section 1.2, it said it could have a significant impact on overlooking issues. To me, that contradicts itself. And then later on down in 2.1, it also says parts of the reasons for the representation is the fact that it will result in clear overlooking and privacy. I was just wondering why the conflict of one saying no, it doesn't, and the other one says yes, it does. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Devlin. Very good point indeed. I will ask James just to clarify, if he can.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, the part of the report where it says yes or no is a default template, and personally it appears that sadly it wasn't filled in to take account of what was actually made in the assessment, and so that's perhaps a training issue that I'll take back to planning.
Councillor Convery.
Yeah, Chair, I've looked at this and looked at it, and I don't see any problem of giving permission for the extension to go ahead. And I take on board what Maureen Devlin just said there. There's two contradictory statements. It's not a training issue. It's something that people need to get right when they're bringing papers to this committee or any other committee. So I would vote to give the applicant the right to do the extension to their home.
Thank you, Councillor Convery. Is there any other questions of Councillor Devlin again, supplementary?
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to come in and second Jerry again. Richard, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Devlin. We'll come to that point just in a moment. Can I just summarise the points made then, if there's no other questions or comments? The application is planning permission for the erection of a new roof with increased bridge height to facilitate second floor of accommodation, installation of front and rear dormers and erection of a balcony. The adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2 identifies the site as being within the settlement boundary of Hamilton. If we consider that there is no valid policy justification to support the proposed rear extension alteration at this location, and it would not accord with policy 16 of MPF 4, policy 35 and DM2 of the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 2, permission can be refused. Or, if we consider that there is adequate justification for the proposed rear extension and alterations, we could grant planning permission subject to conditions. Our options are normally to uphold, reverse or vary the planning decision. However, as the legal advisor has already explained, due to the omission of the reasons for refusal on this decision notice, our options for this review are to reverse or vary the original planning decisions. Can I then now invite for any decisions and the reasons, please?
Chair.
Councillor Convery.
Sorry, yeah. I would reverse the decision of the planning officer for the simple reason, looking at the evidence doesn't stack up for what the planning officer decided, and I would move accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Convery. I would second that as well, Councillor Convery. I do not think it has a detrimental effect on the neighbouring property, given the photographs that we see in the pack, and I don't think it contravenes any loss of privacy to the neighbouring properties. Anyone's otherwise minded? All agreed?
Agreed.
Can we just okay. I'm not going to adjourn just to read the draft conditions. If everyone's happy, I will send these out to you, and I will just run through the draft conditions. There only is one, so I'll just read this out to the PLRB. The development to which this permission relate shall be begun no later than the expiry of 3 years, beginning with the date of grant of this decision notice. The reason to comply with section 58(1) of the Town and Country Planning Scotland Act 1997 as amended. All agreed? Agreed. No ways otherwise minded. Therefore, the decision of this PLRB is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions I've just read and will be sent to everyone. And the next stage is that a written decision notice will be issued by this PLRB and should be issued within 28 days. Agenda item number 5 is items of urgent business. I have no items of urgent business, and therefore can I ask the clerk to stop the recording of the meeting and wish everyone an enjoyable day. Thank you.
Thanks.